Hi, everybody. It's Michael P. Spradlin, and I'm back today with Chapter 10 of The Enemy Above. And I thank all of you for your emails and your comments and sharing on social media. I really appreciate it. Please continue to do that. Share with anyone, young readers, old readers, librarians, teachers, educators. Please feel free to make use of the book while we go through this horrible pandemic. I also wanted to mention a couple of hashtags with stuff that's going on out there, that if you are stuck at home and you want more things like this for kids or anyone, search under the hashtag authors take action and authors give back. And you'll find lots of authors out here who are reading, sharing activities, doing interviews, Q&As, all kinds of stuff. So give that a whirl, and we will get through this. I feel like brighter days are ahead, and we're going to come through this stronger than we were before, I think. So remember to watch out for each other. Please check in on people that are, alone, the elderly, maybe somebody, a young couple that's got a few kids and got their hands full, and see if you can figure out some way to help them out, and while maintaining proper social distancing as well. So that's that. And let's go to Chapter 10. Von Dusen and his squad crept carefully through the woods. The men they followed were unaware of their presence. The milk cans they carried clunked and squeaked on the wooden rail they hung from, masking the sound of the Germans' footsteps. The two men stopped and set the cans on the ground. Von Dusen threw his fist up in the air, his elbow bent at a right angle. His men instantly came to a halt, guns at the ready. They watched and waited. Von Dusen wondered whether his excitement was clouding his judgment. Could the Jews have spotted them? If so, they might try to flee this mighty Gestapo. The major stood stock still, he and his men statues in the darkness. The two Jews were about 40 meters ahead. He heard them muttering softly, but could not hear well enough to understand what they were saying. In truth, it did not matter. If they did not lead him straight to their camp, they would soon be talking directly to him. They would tell him everything they knew about all the remaining Jews in the area. Major Karl von Dusen was very good at interrogating prisoners. The men picked up the milk cans and took off through the woods again. Sergeant Eberhardt looked at him, motioning to see if he wanted to grab the two men now. Von Dusen shook his head. He waved the men forward. These two would lead him to an entire group of hidden Jews. He would wait and capture them all. For another 15 minutes, they followed the men through the forest, listening to the milk cans clank against each other as they traversed the rough terrain. When the forest thinned out, Von Dusen gave his men the hand signal to stop again. They had reached a meadow and would need to be extra cautious crossing the open ground. All it would take for the Nazis to be exposed was one of the Jews glancing behind them. He motioned his men together. Sergeant, stay with me, he whispered. You two, stick to the tree line. One of you go left, the other right. Circle around them, and make sure you are not spotted. The two privates moved off through the trees. Von Dusen and Eberhardt watched the two Juden cross the meadow. They appeared completely unaware that they were being followed. When they'd gotten about a half-kilometer away, the meadow dipped. The Jews strode down a hill and disappeared from sight. Von Dusen touched Eberhardt on the arm. He raised a finger to his lips, then motioned forward. Schnell, he whispered. Hurry, but be quiet. The major and the sergeant carried their machine guns at the ready. As quickly and quietly as they could, they sped forward. But as they approached the crest of the hill, Von Dusen stopped. Herr Major? Eberhard said, wondering why his commander had stopped so suddenly. Karl von Dusen was a believer. He believed in the Reich, the master race, that Jews were inferior in every way. It was inevitable that one day Germany would control the entire European continent. But he was also not stupid. He knew there were Jewish militias about, armed militias. They lived deep in the forest, and they raided German army posts, ambushed patrols, and even sent snipers to kill soldiers of the Reich. Their attempts were foolhardy and doomed to fail, but they did exist. Major Karl von Dusen would not walk blindly into a trap. Listen, Sergeant, he said. Eberhardt concentrated, even cupping a hand to his right ear. He shook his head. I hear nothing, my major, he whispered. Exactly, von Dusen explained. Where's the sound of the clanking milk cans? Perhaps they are resting, the sergeant suggested. Perhaps, von Dusen answered. But perhaps they discovered we are following them and are waiting for us to show ourselves. We will not be ambushed. They did not appear to be carrying weapons, Herr Major, Eberhard said. Appearances can get you killed, Sergeant. Never forget that. Spread out. We will approach the hilltop with 20 meters between us. If they are waiting, they will expect us to be together. Move out, he said. Sergeant Eberhard dutifully moved off to his left. When he was in position, they started forward. Von Dusen pulled back the slide on his machine gun, readying the weapon to fire. Quietly, they approached the hilltop. He took a deep, regular breath to steady his nerves. The hill was really the edge of an old lake that had long ago dried up. The large depression in the ground was several hundred meters across and shaped roughly like a kidney. The bottom of the depression was littered with large boulders, shrubs, and a few small scrub trees that had barely managed to conquer the rocky soil. Von Dusen and Eberhard dropped to one knee at the top of the hill as they had been trained to make themselves as small as targets possible. But as Major Von Dusen scanned the ground below, he saw no signs of the two Jews. Were they hiding among the rocks and bushes? Across the lake bed, something caught his eye and he raised his weapon, but it was only the two privates he had sent to the tree line. Clearly, they had not encountered the Jews, which meant they had to be close. They must be hiding down below among the rocks and shrubs. But where? And that's the end of Chapter 10, and we'll be back tomorrow with Chapter 11. Everyone, please take care, stay healthy, stay safe, and be kind.